It's an early one, but not too early for a cold start. Here we go! All right, this morning, I'm taking the Humvee up to Spartanburg, South Carolina, I believe. Carolina Driveline, not North Carolina, just Carolina Driveline is the one who built the rear drive shaft for the Humvee, and the front drive shaft is such like close tolerances around the shift linkage, around the oil cooler lines, which it doesn't have oil cooler lines, but you know that little block off plate, if you watch the build videos a long time ago, I had to shave that down. So they agreed to let me drive it up there, and they're actually going to build the drive shaft on the truck, so all the clearances fit. I've got the old drive shaft in the back right there. It's got the carrier bearing, a lot of moving parts, so I felt better if they would just do it on the truck. So they were nice enough to let me come up there. It's not super early, but it's kind of early, and we're going to get going. It's going to be super loud. I'll get a few clips of it on the road. I'll be honest with you, this will be a pretty miserable drive. I put the doors back on it. It's going to be crazy loud on the highway, which this will be the first time I've taken it on the highway with the overdrive, so we'll see how that does. And my fuel gauge is a little wonky right now. It kind of like jumps around by about 10 to 15%, maybe even 20% sometimes, and then when it hits like 15%, it just goes to zero. So I'm just going to kind of keep fuel in it, and we'll see how it goes. So let's take off to South Carolina. It's going to take about 2 hours to get there. So this trip may be shorter than we thought. I pulled over at the gas station just because before I got on the interstate, I wanted to check everything underneath it. And it's spewing pretty good bit transmission fluid on the output of the transmission where the cooler line is. That AN fitting that hooks into the transmission is leaking. So I'm going to go to the auto parts place, get a wrench, try to tighten it up again. But if it keeps leaking like that, I'm gonna have to abort mission. I can't drive 100 or 250 miles round trip with it leaking like that. So it's not overheating or anything, you know, it's 150 temp, but I don't want to risk it. So I'll try to tighten it up and see if we can't get up there. But I know where it's leaking now, so that's good. I'll let you know how it goes. So what we're dealing with is this fitting right here, this AN is leaking. And I need to loosen that clamp a little bit, but the back one isn't leaking. The front one is though. So what I did is I got some wrenches and stuff, and I'm just temporarily, I know it's an AN fitting, but I'm gonna put a little Teflon on there, tighten it back up, see if I can't get it to stop. We'll go from there. All right, we've done it. Teflon tape was garbage, but I put it on there the best I could. I took it all apart, cleaned it, reconnected it. Let's see if it still leaks. I'll check. I'll go up the interstate, a couple exits. I'm an hour behind schedule already, so I probably won't be there till noon, which I told him I was gonna be there at 10:30. I need to call him real quick and let him know. Carolina Driveline, best drive shaft shop in the business. This was a horrible idea. Horrible idea. Carolina Driveline right there. Just pulled up. Transmission leaks way worse than I thought. It is pouring. It's covered the bottom of the Humvee. I mean, it's dripping off the differential, for God's sakes. And there's that's Carolina Driveline Humvee. And then right there is a performance speed shop that had new AN fittings. So I'm gonna try to put on these new AN fittings, hose barb, and I just hope that they work, because this thing's pouring way more fluid out than I initially thought, and it's gonna be a bad deal getting home. But Carolina Driveline's been great so far. They came out, they've measured everything, they're inside putting it all together. They said it'd take a couple hours. The drive, if it weren't for the transmission leaking, drive would have been great. Nothing overheated. The transmission to get up to like 218, 217 for a minute, but the motor's cool. I mean, it drove great for just putting it together and going on a 300-mile round trip test drive. So let me get these on, and we'll see if they fix the issue. Hopefully. All right. kind of exhausted. I changed this AN fitting, right? Just a hose barb AN fitting. This was a Earl's AN fitting, aluminum, black aluminum. With this AN fitting, I bought two just in case. This is just a push lock -6. That's the part number, 941-536-0106. It seems to have fixed the issue. So I think I just had maybe a bad AN fitting, hopefully. I just swapped out the fittings, put everything back together, took it for a pretty hard ride, pushed it, 100% throttle a good bit of the way. I'm only at like 150 degrees, 155 degrees, so it's not fully warm. I've refilled the fluid. Luckily, I brought a gallon with me, and there's no leak under there. So we'll see what happens when we get back on the interstate and go from there. Quick update. We are still in the parking lot of Carolina Driveline, 4:00 p.m. Sun's going down. They've been really great. They're in there balancing the shaft right now. They got it done. They've come out here, measured the truck a bunch, make sure the clearances are good for me. Worst case scenario, where the carrier bearing is, I'll just have to kind of slide that on its mount on the frame to get it pulled away from the shift linkage, because on this 4L80, it uses the longer shift linkage, and on a factory Humvee, it uses a little bitty shift linkage, so it's kind of in the way. I did not know that when I ordered the transmission, or I would have had the stubby one put on it. It's not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. But I've run the transmission a few times. I've gone to the parts store, no leaks. I've coated everything, just soaked it in carburetor cleaner so it cleaned out all the transmission fluid. So if there is a leak, I'll see it. And I'm gonna go from here to a gas station, get something to drink, fill up, go from there. All right, so there's the new shaft. Carrier bearing, everything's ready, all measured up. They put it in, made sure it fit. I didn't want to mount it up yet because I have to take the transmission out. So look what it did to all that transmission fluid. Let's see if we fixed it. Oh, I gotta get on the ground and all this gum. Looks like we did not, maybe. I see transmission fluid, I think I do. Oh yeah, look at that. It's not as bad. Looks like it's still coming from up there though. Oh yeah, it's on the frame. This is bad news. Very, very bad news. I think it's that connection right there. So I just need to get my flashlight and take a look and clean this up. It's not like, well, I haven't been driving that long, but we'll figure it out, I guess. God, that sucks. I was really hoping that would fix it. All right, so I think this time I am dealing with an overfull transmission. Last time the fitting definitely leaked, 100%. This time the fitting's dry, the hose is dry, but right above the fitting is the breather. And so I checked the fluid, because I'd put fluid into the hash mark when it was like 160, something like that. Not 160, like 120. And it was at the hash mark. So now I'm running, 180, 185, and it's all the way past the hash mark. So I think it's just over full now that it's hot and it's spewing out of the breather. So we'll see. I'm gonna drive it. I'll check it again. I'll check it probably every 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It'll take me forever to get home, but I'd rather do that. I'm gonna watch the temps, look for smoke, because on the way up here, I would see white smoke puff up from the transmission tunnel, and that let me know that transmission fluid was hitting the exhaust, so it was obviously leaking a lot. But I'll continue to watch it. I probably could stop at an auto parts store and put a hose on the breather. I'm gonna try to do that. Let me see where an auto parts store is, and I'll see if I can get a length of hose to hook up to the breather to kind of put it down past, like a good bit past the transmission. That way I'll know for sure that's what it is. Right, so I know it's gonna be hard to see, but I either created something ingenious or it's a really bad idea. But you see that black hose right there? That black hose is run to the vent line of the transmission, because I'm trying to determine whether or not the vent line is where the leak is coming from. I've got that run into this bottle. I've got a hole in the lid. I've got some vents on the body so it can still vent out. But if this starts filling with fluid, then I know the transmission's something's going on. Either it's over full, it's overheating, something like that. So I'm going to run it down the interstate, and then I'll cut back and kind of show you if we have any fluid in there, and we'll go from there. Still on the way home. I'm at Quick Trip as always, and let me take these out. At Quick Trip as always, and I put gas in it again. I've put 30, 40, 45 gallons of fuel in this thing so far, and I'm just driving 2.5 hours each direction. So fuel efficiency with the converter, it runs at 3,500 RPM on the interstate, just full bore like a boat, just wide open 3,500. But let me show you my ingenious idea. Let me see, can you see that? All that fluid in there? So that's from the vent line. So I got to figure out, I probably overfilled the transmission, but that would have been on the bottom side of the Humvee had I not hooked it up like this. So I already went underneath. There's no fluid under this truck. So that was it. I do still think it was leaking out of that AN fitting a little bit or a lot, but maybe not. I don't know, I don't care. As long as I got it to where the bottom of the truck isn't covered in transmission fluid and I can drive all the way home without having to worry about it smoking and overheating and yada, yada, yada. So I'm glad I found that. Make sure I'm not pouring it on the inside of my truck. There we go. I'm glad I found it. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the rest of the way home. I'm not gonna put the drive shaft in tonight. Excuse me, because I still have to take the transmission off or out, send the torque converter out, get tightened up and back. I had a great conversation with them today. They're going to run it at like 2,200 stall, maybe even a little bit less. So because it's so heavy, and I just want that off the line power. I don't want I don't want it to rev to the moon and then hit the power band and all that crap. That's race car stuff. This is not a race car. No matter how bad I want it to be, it's not a race car. So yeah. We're gonna do that. I'm gonna head home. I'll hit one more time when I get back to the shop. All right, I'm back in the shop. I am definitely mostly deaf now because I rode all the way back. I did have earbuds or earbuds or whatever in, but it was really loud and it was for a very, very long time. I left at 8 o'clock this morning and it is 8:41, so over a 12-hour day to get this rear drive shaft, not because of the drive shaft. Carolina Driveline was awesome. Went up there, super nice, affordable. They got the drive shaft measured up on site, built it. I showed it to you earlier. It's in the back of the truck right there, carrier bearing ready to go. I'm not going to put it in because I do have to pull the transmission to get the torque converter out. I did talk to the torque converter company. They are going to tighten that converter up down to between 1,800 and 2,200, more like a rock crawler type converter, more probably on the 2,200 range just because of the cam that's in the motor. I think that's it. And then I'm going to go down to Black Dog Customs, which is Michael Vaden, kind of the godfather of Humvees, and get an engine cover for the turbo trucks because I have to have that to be able to clear the manifold. I'm also going to get the divider between the bed and the cab, that panel that goes across, because I'm kind of sick of stuff sliding into the main cabin area. Also, the trans fluid, I haven't looked under. We'll do that in a second, but you can see, I think you can see, yeah, the bottle has a good bit of fluid in it. That would have ended up under the truck, all over the bottom of the truck. So I'm going to leave that there. Just, as I mess with the transmission, I want to have it somewhere. I want to have somewhere for the fluid to go if it does overflow. But let's get under the truck for a second and look and see if there's any fluid under the truck, because then that would mean there's fluid leaking from somewhere else. Oh, scoot. Ow. All right, let's see. Keep going. Oh God, drop the phone. Sorry guys. All right. So I have fluid here every single time and right along the lip of the pan, and I can see a reflection of some fluid on the kind of where the gasket is, and I'm wondering if the gasket is not sealing. So it's not anywhere else. It's always just along the front, and it's not on the converter. It's not near the pump. There's nothing up there. So I don't know. Let's see, that connection is dry as a bone. That connection's dry as a bone. These down here are good. This is all wet from earlier today. Ugh, I hate that did that. I mean, you can see, if you look down, well, you can't see in the video because of the light, but there's transmission fluid everywhere. So I gotta spend some time at some point cleaning all that up. But yeah, so it was all the vent tube, or the vent was leaking. I do see some fluid, which could be, that's probably from the vent earlier today. And then that's probably coolant because I don't have the overflow in place. I will say the exhaust manifolds earlier in the video were glowing red. Both sides, both manifolds, completely red going down the interstate, which was kind of, what happened? Device is too hot. Why is the device too hot? All right, that's going to wrap it up. No fluid underneath, really. I'll figure out where that other stuff's coming from. And we'll keep moving forward. Got to get that transmission and converter out. All right, y'all have a good one. That's a cool picture.